One of the biggest pieces of criticism Subnautica 2 has had, I wouldn't say from the majority of the player base, but from a big chunk of the player base, maybe like 20-30% if I had to guess, is that you can't fight the wildlife in Subnautica 2. And of course, this is a core mechanic in every Subnautica game. You've never really been supposed to or particularly capable of fighting the wildlife in these games. In Subnautica 1, you could stasis rifle and kill a Reaper Leviathan famously, but it was never ever worth doing. But nonetheless, people are feeling very frustrated with Subnautica 2 in that regard. One of the Subnautica 2 devs did come out and say something like, this game isn't going to be a killing game, go play the forest or something, which is really funny, but yeah, it's been poorly received by the people who are very frustrated about not being able to kill animals. Personally, I think they should leave the sarcastic, abrasive comments to YouTubers like me. But what is actually in the hotfix? Well, there's a couple of things here involving fixes related to DLSS, which I don't use because I'm apparently a boomer. But they also reduced the interior wall cost to 1/4 of the previous price. Nice, okay, whatever. But the next thing is all about creatures. So hammerheads will no longer attack unpiloted tadpoles. That's pretty useful. People were kind of annoyed about coming back to their tadpole being head-butted by a hammerhead, but they do still take an interest in tadpoles. I don't know if that necessarily means like when you're not in it, they'll still like look at it and maybe like do the little threat display thing, or if it just means they'll still attack you when you're in a tadpole. And it also says that they have fixed hammerheads occasionally not being attracted to flares, which yeah, fair enough. The next thing is about marrow breaches. We have increased overall marrow breach damage and spaced out marrow breach attacks to occur less frequently. And I'm going to do a little test of these in a minute to see how these all work, so I'll get to that in a second. And probably the most important one, I think, to reduce the frustration of the people who have reasonable concerns about the inability to fight nibblers in this game, is they have reduced the nibbler perception range, making players less visible to them, so they're less likely to attack you from further away and stuff. They'll leave you alone more. They've increased the duration that nibblers circle the player before attacking, so again, you're less likely to be spam attacked by them. They've reduced the overall movement speed of nibblers, so you can get away from them a little bit more easily, and they've increased the sensitivity of nibblers to the multi-tool, meaning you can punch them in the face, get them to leave you alone if they're really annoying you, and they have increased the overall damage of nibblers, which sounds like a little bit of a contradiction from the last stuff, but I think this is fair because, in my opinion, the base game original version early access Subnautica 2 is laughably easy at times, especially if you actually know how to use flares, by the way, and I haven't really understood the desire to be able to kill the wildlife because none of it has ever threatened me even vaguely in this game, and I was actually one of the people calling for the animals to do more damage, so I think this is a good balance for the people who want more challenge and for the people who want less annoyance. It's not like we just get a laser rifle and can kill everything, but they've made the nibblers a little bit more chill, right? They're less aggressive and more of a threat in certain situations, which is probably good for the basic early game enemy thing, right? Like the sand shark of this game, or the stalker of this game, if you want to think about it that way. They also fixed a rare crash when starting games, fixed clients reverting to their previous position when rejoining multiplayer sessions, fixed the strike armor modification stacking additively, which could result in potentially game-breaking state. An interesting thing here is they say they stopped it from stacking additively, which sounds like they've maybe changed how it stacks, but we'll see later in this video that no, they've just changed the fact that it stacks at all. And they have fixed the goggles remaining visible in first-person view when exiting the tadpole hull chassis as a passenger, which is a bug I actually noticed. It would just cause your goggles to be like in front of you in the world space. It was kind of annoying, as well as some localizations for the TOS acceptance screen and some stuff with crash reports. So let's jump in and test some of these changes, particularly with regards to the nibbler and the marrow breach. All right, let's get bit by a nibbler. That is actual damage off of that, and that's more than it used to be for sure. They also talked about sensitivity with the multi-tool, right? Like if you ran into a pack of these and you weren't paying attention, you could really like get bit properly. But they're not super aggressive. I've actually naturally healed all that damage. Yeah, that's a fair chunk of damage compared to what it used to do. Let's try and stab him and see if yeah, he definitely reacts. A bit delayed, but you know, early access game. Yep. Yeah, when you do the attack, they kind of like do a little hit animation a little bit too slowly, and then they fly away. That's interesting. So the nibblers are actually a threat now, but you can also actually get them to go away. They kind of remind me of like sand sharks and bone sharks in Subnautica 1. Like they weren't super dangerous, but they did damage if you were just sitting still next to them. There's a little pack of them over here. Let's see how these guys do. I'm also, weirdly enough, it's not mentioned on the patch notes, I don't think, but I'm noticing a lot more 4 eyes. Like, look in front of me, there's 3. Well, or 6, depending on how you think about that. And I actually got attacked by a 4-eye earlier for the first time in like 70 hours, so I wonder if they've also tweaked their behaviors in an update I missed. Ow. Yeah, they're definitely way less aggressive now. You can see, like, they're not chasing after me forever like they normally are, so that's good. Here's a marrow breach, so let's give him a little test. Hello. Okay, that's still only like nibbler tier damage, not gonna lie, but this is the baby marrow breach. I feel like he's more aggressive than anything else. The patch notes said that they spaced out the marrow breach attacks to be less frequent. This feels like more frequent. They increased the overall damage. Maybe it means more so the big marrow breach, right? Like the dangerous one. Although he's kind of chill now. I guess maybe that's how it works. Maybe he attacks you twice, gives you a little bit of time, attacks you twice, you know? That would make sense if so. Right, well, let's go see the big marrow breach and see if he's more of a threat. Ah! Okay, that does a lot of damage. Okay. That's good, though. I think the marrow breach should be dangerous, because the game really builds it up to be this, like, really scary thing. And it did genuinely, like, 10% of your health bar, even the big ones. So, like, when it does its snatch attack, I guess, and it does, like, an actual just over a quarter of your health bar, that feels, like, not stupid. But yeah, he's chill. He's like not constantly spamming it like the old one did. I remember I was trying to record a video near here at the Tailing Village, and I was in God mode, and I was just being thrown around by the marrow breaches. Like they were just, there's 2 of them, and they were constantly like doing the snatch animation. By the time their animation was done, the next one would just do it to me as well. I think it was these 2 specifically, actually. One of them got aggro trained. Hi there. Oh yeah, that's a lot of damage. But then they kind of just leave you alone for a fair bit. Oh, hello. I speak too soon. I think the other one followed me here, though. But yeah, this is like one of the few dangerous situations that can actually occur in Subnautica 2 right now. Then is when there's 2 marrow breaches like this, and you have to move, or you're gonna get eaten by these. But they're pretty, you know, like not that dangerous. And I've been reprinted just like that. So like you can actually die to these creatures now. That's good. Like yes, that should be the case in this game. Previously, the only things that could really kill you in normal gameplay were like a collector leviathan if you really messed up, and the needlers if you weren't paying attention. But now marrow breaches can actually harm you, as can nibblers, but nibblers are still not that much of a threat, and you can deter those. I think that's a good change in terms of making the game actually have a bit more tension in this early area here. Well, not this early area here, like in the graveyards. Still pretty safe around here with just nibblers, but you can actually be killed by the wildlife. And I know some people are gonna be like, that's the opposite of what I wanted. I wanted to be able to get rid of them. But they are now more responsive to the axe. The marrow breach isn't, and the marrow breach shouldn't, in my opinion. It's kind of like halfway between a sand shark and a reaper leviathan. It should be a threat, but it shouldn't be an insta-kill, and that's what it is. Whereas the nibblers are only really a threat in like a pack or if you get surrounded. That's how I think the game should work for these early game predators. Like, they're punishing if you get into the wrong situation, basically. Another thing we want to test here is the strike armor effectiveness has been reduced. So let me spawn a tadpole. Let me spawn strike armor. I'll probably give myself a few of these. Right, so first of all, do they stack at all? No, they just literally cannot be added. Okay, so that, I guess that kind of like answers how those work. They're not stackable at all. I was told by someone in my comments, though, if you have a world where they were already equipped, you can just keep them in. So, you know, your save file isn't screwed there. That did a fair bit of damage. But yeah, the strike armor still seems to work about the same way it always did. But now it doesn't stack, making it much less effective. Which is probably good for the health of the game if we're being realistic. There really is a lot more 4-eyes around here for some reason. I wonder if I've just been playing on older worlds. It's not mentioned in the patch notes, but I feel like there's more 4-eyes. And I definitely feel just like going past these nibblers and stuff, I'm way less harassed. The thing is like a lot of people want to like have more of a means to defend yourself against the wildlife in this game, and that's fine. Honestly, if you have like Subnautica 1 where you have the stasis rifle and the knife and you can kill literally anything, it ruins the game. It completely turns like the point of the game on its head. Like it's supposed to be you against the wildlife, and the point is that you kind of can't just go around killing it all because it's too powerful. Sure, maybe you should be able to kill nibblers, for example. They're just like little baby sharks. No, but I kind of like that you can't really kill a marrow breach, or you can't kill like a Lecter Leviathan. Some people have logical problems with that. They want you to be able to just mount some laser guns to your tadpole and shoot at the Collector Leviathan. That's just not a fun game, first of all. That is a different type of game entirely. That's a shooter game. This is a survival game where the point is that the wildlife can and will kill you. But it also goes against like the themes of the Subnautica games, which are about like ecology and stuff. If you go around a world and start killing off all of the marrow breaches because they annoy you, you destroy that world. Because first of all, the world in Subnautica 2 is on the edge of collapse. If you've been paying attention to like the story and stuff, the Necrolay Hills is a really barren biome deliberately. And some of the info on like the creatures and stuff, particularly the coral crab comes to mind, tells you that they're suffering from like mineral and nutrient deficiencies because of the ecological problems in Subnautica 2. If you went into that environment and started killing off all the apex predators, you would destroy the world, because all the things that the apex predators eat would explode in their population. They would then eat whatever those creatures eat too much, possibly driving those creatures or plants to extinction, thus causing the exploding population to also go extinct, thus causing you to go extinct, because you wouldn't have anything to eat on this world if you killed everything. So you can't go around killing all of these major predators in a world, especially one that is so fragile as the world in Subnautica 2. That's kind of like the point that the broader game is trying to make about ecology, right? Subnautica 1 has the same one with the Sea Empress. It tries to tell you about being too divided from nature, right? It was bad for the architects to be so reliant on technology and so unconnected with nature. They weren't able to hear the Sea Empress and figure out what she needed in order to cure the Kara, and they all died of it. You know, the Subnautica games have a clear message of being sort of more in tune with nature, not necessarily pacifism, because of course you're allowed to eat the baby fishes, but it does have more of a don't just kill big animals because they're a threat to you kind of thing, because it's bad for the environment message. And I think they shouldn't give us laser guns for that reason. Like, you dilute the point of the game from a gameplay perspective and from like a message perspective, right? If you do that. So yeah, I think this is a good change. I don't think it really solves all of the problems that the more reasonable critics of Subnautica 2's animal problem have. I think they won't really give in until they're able to at least kill some of these creatures with their multi-tool. But personally, I think it's a skill issue. To be completely honest, it is. I've completed the first Subnautica game on hardcore without killing any of the creatures in the game, not even deliberately. It's just never worth it to kill them. And it's not that difficult to use distraction flares and just stay out of range of some of these creatures. So from a difficulty perspective, it doesn't really need it. But I get it from an annoyance perspective. If you're trying to build relatively near nibblers and they just won't leave you alone, I completely understand the need to be able to just hit them to get them to piss off, right? But yeah, I don't think the game needs the ability to truly just go around slaughtering the wildlife, because the game becomes boring. Have you ever done it in Subnautica 1? The game becomes pointless. It's just pointless. So yeah, I'll cut that little tangent short there, but I hope you found this video useful for knowing like how the recent update has changed the behaviors of the animals, and perhaps insightful as to why the developers are so like against making, you know, more overt ways to kill the animals, like, you know, spears and harpoons and stuff like that. If you enjoyed this video, I would recommend checking out this video where we see what the Subnautica 2 devs have planned for the future of the game. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.